Hello, friends. Chris Corsi here, and I want to welcome you to the Relational Skills in Real Life podcast. Friends, I'm glad you're here. Really excited about today's focus, but who am I? I'm Chris Corsi. I'm the Thrive president here at Thrive Today. I'm also a co-founder of the Thrive training along with Dr. Jim Wilder. So, friends, the goal of this podcast is very simple. We want to share examples of what it looks like to practice relational skills in real life. You know, our brain learns a lot by modeling an example. And what that means is we learn by stories. We learn with stories. We learn when other people share times that they practiced something or they learned something or they recovered or repaired from something. And so the goal with this podcast is really to provide some avenues for encouragement, examples, modeling, and prayerfully, we hope that it'll provide some hope as well as you start to learn and hear what we all have to share. So, friends, I'm really looking forward to today's episode because today we're going to focus on what I call the ministry of 3 to 5 minutes. So, the ministry of 3 to 5 minutes refers to getting your brain in a trainable state. So, getting your mind and your brain in a trainable state. So, the ministry of 3 to 5 minutes is basically pausing to remember the good stuff, what we call the skill of appreciation. So, when we practice remembering and feeling appreciation for at least 3 minutes, what it does is it puts your brain in a trainable state, what's known as brain plasticity. So it makes your brain plastic. Now, that doesn't mean that it plastic like your brain's going to be really hard and it can't change. Plasticity refers to your brain's ability to think new thoughts, learn new habits, grow new skills, to develop new pathways in your brain where you're learning something new and you're gaining some new skills and you're updating unwanted patterns with new examples, just like you would update a computer or your phone with new software. Every now and then, we also need to update our relational system in our brain with new examples and some new habits. So we're going to really focus on how to do this and what all this means. And so when I think about the ministry of 3 to 5 minutes, I think about my friend who is a full-time pastor, and he does a lot of work in the mental health field. And he is someone that came to me and he basically said, Chris, you know what? I'm not doing well. I'm struggling with a lot of anxiety. I'm struggling with a lot of depression. And yet I serve people who struggle with this. So I need to change these habits. I need to grow new habits and new relational skills. So one of the things I had him do is I introduced the ministry of 3 to 5 minutes for him. And I actually practiced with him. It's like, okay, I'm going to set a timer here for at least 3 minutes. And let's practice remembering the good stuff, feeling the good stuff, and sharing the good stuff. So we remember glad to be together moments. We feel the joy as we remember those moments. And then we share it in the form of a story. So we tell the story of what happened. And so what happens when you do the sequence of remembering, feeling, and sharing is it's like you go back in time to relive the moment all over again. And the same feel-good chemicals are released as you remember it, as you feel it. And studies have shown with the power of storytelling that if I tell my story good enough and clear enough, and I draw out the details of what was happening in my story, what happens is your brain starts to light up as though you're experiencing this moment. So your brain is actually mirroring and matching what's happening in my brain as I tell the story. So you're hearing the story, you're visualizing it, you're imagining it, and you're with me in that story. So it's really kind of a big deal when we share the good stuff. So you remember it, you feel it, and you share it. That is the sequence. And as my friend practiced the exercise with me, it was like he was that lamp that was plugged in and light came on in the room. So he felt better. He felt clearer. He felt more connected. He felt peaceful. He could even feel some of the joy that was sparking in that example. And I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to try to practice this on a daily basis. So remembering the good stuff, feeling the good stuff, sharing the good stuff. And I want you to lean into that. On a regular basis, do this. And then I followed up with him later, and the results were profound as he started to practice this. He said, Chris, one of the things I've noticed is I'm more receptive to God's presence as I'm remembering and feeling and sharing the good stuff. I'm actually looking for joy, and I feel closer to God, and I feel like God is with me in these places. And so he noticed his relational circuit was coming online more often. So he wasn't getting as bogged down in some of the toxic thoughts that he used to wrestle with. He could start to scan for good stuff, and he felt God's closeness. And he noticed he was more relational with his family and coworkers as well. So he noticed he had more life to give, more joy to share with others. He was more available in the present. And he also noticed he had greater capacity to navigate the hard stuff. So he still dealt with hard stuff, still endured hard stuff. But what changed was he felt like he was more equipped, better equipped. He didn't drown in the quicksand of the hard stuff. He actually noticed that he could recover more and better. And he felt just more optimistic and more hopeful. And the people around him started to notice, like, what's gotten into you? You're a little different. His wife noticed it, his kids noticed it. Like there was something happening in him. And it's not magic. It just means that he's practicing growing good things in his relational garden. He's practicing the remembering and the feeling and the sharing of the good stuff. And he just overall had more peace and more enjoyment of life. So he was able to navigate hard stuff. He was able to reflect his heart and his values and be more present. And that's pretty big deal if you think about it. And just again, the ministry of 3 to 5 minutes, it just means that he was practicing remembering and feeling and sharing the good stuff. He was purposeful about it. He was creating habits that he could then use and share. And those habits started to rub off on his family, in his marriage, with his kids, with his coworkers. Like this started to share. He started to share this with people around him, even those that he served, and they felt it as well. So he was sharing the good stuff. So this is an encouraging story, and I hope it encourages you that a little bit of joy goes a long way. And the ministry of 3 to 5 minutes is very simply getting your brain in a trainable state. And so this is the difference between maybe adding some of this to your prayer time instead of just focusing on what's wrong and what hurts. We're starting to focus on the good stuff. And so what we're doing is we're sandwiching the hard stuff with the bread of the good stuff. So we're actively reflecting on the good stuff and feeling it. And I find in my prayer times as part of what I do, I like to thank God for his gifts and remind him of his gifts, even as I go to him with some concerns or some hurts or some struggles or some needs. So we can start our prayer times with this, and then we can share the hard stuff with the Lord, and we can end with the good stuff. So it's kind of like the Psalms, where the psalmist is praising God for something and just remembering God's good stuff, even while they're in the midst of the hard stuff. And so you see this process going from, hey, have you forgotten me, God? Where are you? To, but I remember you, worshiping you in your temple, and then praising God at the end of the psalm. So this is a way of life that we can do to help us and help others that we care about when we interact with them. Try to find the good stuff. So a little bit of practice goes a long way. So this week you can insert some of this into your drive to work, into your meal times when you interact with family or friends, into your prayer times, even with your interactions with others. Then you notice the effects of this practice. So I might say, hey, what's been going well for you this week? And we probably have 10 things that's not going well, but what's going well today? What has God been doing in you? How have God's gifts recently impacted you? What are some of those gifts? So we're helping people to learn to grow the good stuff. And I write a lot about this in the book, The Joy Switch. Really, how do we grow the good stuff to get relational and to spread some joy with our people in the environment that we live?